She is. She's sweet as pie. She really is. But and she is beginning to calm herself a bit as she gets a tad older, but she's also nuts.
Uh,
I mean, like properly nuts. She makes me freaking nuts sometimes. All right.
that's a clinical term, I believe you're using, right?
Oh, she's mental. She's just mental. She can be absolutely mental. I mean, I got nothing else for you for that.
Oh, they're so entertaining.
I have to all right, so sharing is underway. I'm a little behind. Hang in
You
there.
were coming up with just
Hang in there. Oh, oh boy. Doesn't feel good.
By the way, before I forget, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
But you can't guess what I got in my slow cooker.
I
How about corned beef and cabbage?
know. I was gonna say, I know what you should have.
Well, I hope that's correct. Can I add something else, an observation, Jeff?
Huh?
Could I add something else?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It pleases me that you and I can speak civilly and in a friendly way, even though we disagree on a couple of things.
Well, that's because I'm
I'm,
confident in the fact that I'm right. No,
well, if we're going to go down that road, if
I'm
we're going to go down
kidding.
that rabbit hole,
I'm just confident
well,
in the fact.
my brother and I disagree on the same major point that you and I don't agree on. And we agreed happily and civilly to say to ourselves, we hope we'll live long enough to find out which one of us is right and which one of us isn't. You know, I'm getting real close to my 82nd birthday. I'm not the person I used to be, and I see my health is very gradually diminishing. So I don't know how long I have yet.
All right, sharing's underway, folks. Hoping to be
If
just
you're starting now, I'll just mute myself.
you're all right. I'll let you know when. When you hear the music start.
Okay.
See
I
how
saw that Bobby Kennedy Jr. is using your same theme song,
no.
or
Well,
his uncle's, of course.
not mine.
Well,
Um,
JFK.
yeah. That definitely muddies the waters, doesn't it? Which I think is the point of it, to be honest. Trying to link yourself to a heritage that you have not necessarily lived up to.
Well, or followed.
Okay,
By
hang
the
on.
way, I had one of those.
Let's see
I
when
want
they.
to tell you something later, but not now.
Yeah, we're live now.
Okay, I'll move.
See how many groups I can share into before I get stopped. lucky here. I think almost be there. Come on. Okay. Okay. I see it. Okay. And now we got stopped. All right. Well, uh, he said, let's get after it.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know enough to do. It's up to you. It's up to you. It's strictly up to you. Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight? Is right. A loyal man who brings a job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you. It's up to you. It's strictly up to you. Do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed? It's to which we must be true. So it's up to you. It's up to you. It's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? Who'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you'll cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Welcome, 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 welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, North American continent, Western Hemisphere, on this planet Earth. The only one. We have third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect, live with you for St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2024. A hearty sláinte and happy St. Patrick's to all of you. There are no other nationality, heritage more identified with in the United States than Irish. Nearly 60% of the American population identifies themselves in even some small way as Irish. This one included, but not in a small way. But this guy included. So a hearty St. Patrick's to all of you. If you were out last night and did your libations and so on, then I hope you're feeling okay today, or at least okay by now. Hopefully you had a good and responsible night. Let's be honest, it is a bit of a drink. Well, it's turned into a drinking holiday, hasn't it? And a lot of amateurs seem to make their way out on St. Patrick's to try to show everybody how good they can handle the drink, and then they can't almost universally. So hope that if you did so, that you did so responsibly and that you did not overdo so, and that you're feeling well enough today. We are thrilled to have you with us. As Franz mentioned in the pre-show, you may have caught it during our sharing parts of the program that he's got the corned beef and cabbage going in the crock pot, and I hope you do as well. I'm much more of a fish and chips guy myself, or pasty. I do love my pasties. They're so good. That kind of thing. So I hope you whatever floats your boat. I hope you celebrate. It also, I think, a bit of an unofficial um, beginning to spring, if you will. I know that Kristen's favorite uh, season of the year by far is winter and Christmas and so on. But St. Patrick's really is, I think, for a lot of people, it certainly is for me. Excuse me, it certainly is for me. Kind of a turning of the calendar, if you will. Kind of makes you think that, in kind of the same way, I guess, that that Labor Day is the beginning of fall, or that Thanksgiving is the beginning of the holiday season, and on and on. St. Patrick's really is the beginning of spring in it. So, and it felt very much like spring this weekend and at times during the week, and I very much hope that it will this coming week, which makes me think to actually have a look at it and see what the week is looking like. Well, not really, is it? 46 tomorrow, 40s, low 50s, 40s. So not going to feel too much like spring, is it? But it's a beginning anyway. So if you did celebrate with a bit of the drink, I hope you did it responsibly and that you didn't overdo it. And a happy St. Patrick's to everyone as well. I want to thank you all for being here. Let me quickly get through a bit of the business end of the program. Before I was stopped, shocker, he got stopped during his sharing. What a surprise. We shared to 105 places and didn't even finish. I want to say a hearty welcome to, there's another like 6 new internet radio groups that were kind enough to allow us to be members and share our program into their groups. And I want to say welcome to them all as well. I should have written their names down so that I could read them, and I didn't, and I should have. But there's now about a dozen of these Facebook groups that are based all around internet radio that have allowed us to be a part of them because they support each other. You promote your show there in your station and so on. And they have done that for us. They've allowed us to become part of it. And we're very, very happy about it. It's really a big deal. And it's very kind because, as you know, I will say to folks that, when you allow us to be a part of your corner of the Facebook universe, because, as I've said probably way too many times, yes, Facebook owns everything that you put there. It's part of the agreement of becoming, part of it, if you will. They own it all. Your photos, I mean, every keystroke you make, all of it. But I still think of it as yours. If you created a group, that's yours. And for you all to allow us to be part of it means a great deal, continues to mean a great deal. It's how we survive. It's how we grow. And we're very grateful. So now there's about a dozen of these internet radio groups that have allowed us to become part of their group. And we're very, very fortunate and appreciative of it. We hope that you take it in, that you become callers, regular listeners, the whole deal. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So wherever you might be across the Facebook universe, we shared to about 105 places before we were stopped, because heaven forbid, we could do that. And I know I've told this story before. I'm really going down a rabbit hole, aren't I? That I've actually called Facebook once, and I actually spoke to a live human being. She sounded like a pretty young lady, and I don't mean pretty appearance. I mean like pretty young. And I said, well, just tell me what you want. Tell me what you want. What money do you want from me? What do you want from me so that you stop doing this to me? And she couldn't even answer me. And that's kind of the ridiculous part of it. I get stopped doing my sharing every single week, and yet they can't tell me how to stop it. I've offered them money and they still won't stop it. So anyway, we got out to 105 places before we were stopped. If I can get into the second hour of the program, and I'll explain that in a minute, we'll finish our sharing and move on. But wherever you are across the Facebook universe, thank you for allowing us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe. Groups both large, small, public, private, local, regional, national, global, and individuals, of course, who continue to help share our program. Thank you. Our home group Facebook page for this program is called That Other Side of Information. We are live there now. You can check us out there or stay right where you are and continue to watch and listen. However, it is my own personal Facebook. My name's right in the left-hand, well, yes, as you're looking at the screen, it would be the bottom left-hand corner of my square. There, my personal Facebook is where I will see your comments and questions, and I hope that you will have plenty of both as we proceed throughout the program. We want your interaction. NPR is a lovely thing, but it can get a little lecture-y, and I am not here to lecture to you. We are here to have a conversation with each other, and I hope that you will do that. But you can go to my personal Facebook, put your comments, questions, say hello, let us know you're there, all of that good stuff. I will say hello to you as well. You name it, it'll be there. With hot101.net, our name is our web address. If you can connect to the internet anywhere below, on, above earth, you can listen to hot101.net 24 hours a day. I almost said 24 hours a day, 27 days a week. Oh, that's not good. That's not good. That's a scary little slip. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's always there. Always. Hot101.net. Check out the folks who put their talents on Hot 101. It's brilliant. You will enjoy it. Absolutely. I don't hide the fact that a lot of the music on 101 is not my taste, but yet I am continually blown away by the way the ladies and gentlemen DJs of Hot 101 put it all together. It's done with such skill and such artistry. And even though the music is not music that I normally take in, I am fascinated at the way they mix it all together. They're so talented and they're such good folks, and they deserve for you to give them a shot, give them a listen. Hot101.net, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, everywhere below, on, and above planet Earth. If you can connect to the internet, you can listen to it on any device, a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, your phone. You can Bluetooth it to speakers, earbuds, Bluetooth it in the car. You can listen. And of course, you can use the apps. You don't need to go to the website. You can use the apps: Apple App Store for Apple devices, Google Play Store for Android devices, and the TuneIn radio app. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. And I think the really important thing here: no money, no login, no registration, no credit card imprint, no blood sample. Don't have to sign away your house, give up your firstborn. You download the app, you tap on it, it opens, and you're listening. Period. End of story. It's that easy. It's that quick. It's that simple. Hot101.net and the TCP Media Group, and of course, our loan sponsor, the PayGive app, paygive.org. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? Justin mentions I had a Trump slip. That very well could have been, but that's hurtful. It's hurtful, Justin. It's hurtful. It hurts me. It's hurt me. It's probably true. But yeah, that hurts a little. It stings. That stings. I'll take that. But a hearty welcome to you, Justin. Thank you for being here. I'm missing my friend. We still want to get you on the program to talk about the work that you do as well. I want to just start off by saying that I have no idea how long I'm going to make it into this program. As you well know, I have probably less of my body functions properly than doesn't. And today is one of those days. So I'm going to explain this. It's a little blunt. It's a little it's that kind of it's nails on a chalkboard kind of thing that when you hear it, you're going to get a little uncomfortable. I have a kidney stone stuck in my left kidney that is trying to work its way out. And the only reason I am not screaming in pain is because that process has either begun or it's just the amount of painkillers I've taken and it doesn't quite feel that bad. But it is not out. It might be working its way through because it's not as bad as it was a couple of hours ago. George would well tell you, and I'm very thrilled that George is here, that I texted him, I think around, I don't know, sometime between 3:30 and 4 that I didn't know how long we were going to make it, because at that point I was on my hands and knees leaning on the steps because it's the stair steps, because it's the only, my cousin Dawn will remember us calling them all stair steps. My dad used to call it that for whatever reason. And that we because it's the only position that was even semi comfortable in these incredible waves of tantamount to labor pain were coming through. It still hurts. It still feels like somebody's got a knife in there and kind of playing with it and twisting it around, but it isn't as bad as it was. But that might be the pain meds, or maybe it's working its way through. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one here on the radio. But what I can tell you is that I've learned a lot about kidney stones in the past several years. My kidneys, for whatever reason, create them at an alarming rate. Everybody's kidneys makes stones or make stones. My grammar might have been off there. Everyone's kidneys make stones. What normally happens is that as they pass from the kidney down through the urinary tract, they are crushed and pulverized into dust. And then you pass them and you never even know. You don't feel it. It just happens. It's normal body function. I happen to produce an alarming number of them, and they don't all break down. And sometimes they're so big, they get stuck in my kidneys. And that is what we're doing today. We have one stuck right in the left kidney. So I will continue as long as I can stand the pain, to be perfectly blunt with you. At the moment, it is my shoulder is bothering me more than my kidney at the moment. So either my kidney is forcing through the stone, or it's just the pain medication is working, and then it will get ugly later. So we'll go as long as I can stand it. No, I mean, I got nothing more for you than that. So that's about it. We almost didn't start. And the reason that I started the show, because George said, and rather correctly, why don't you just cancel it? And it was already pushing 4 o'clock, and I thought that would be rude to do that 2 hours ahead. And there's no way I'd be able to get the announcements out to everybody that quickly, because I was so blinded with pain I couldn't focus on it anyway. But and then I started to feel a little bit better. I just thought, let's have a go. Let's just see how long we can carry on. I don't know if I got 3 hours in me tonight, but we'll carry on as long as we can. For the amount of time that I spend publishing and promoting and trying to push this program along, I do. If I announce that I'm going to be here, I do very strongly feel a sense of duty to be here. So I just decided we'll give it a go. And I do feel better than I did when I first texted George, but I don't know how long that's going to last. If you were listening during the theme song and you heard me doing a lot of heavy breathing because I was trying to breathe through a couple of spasms and ridiculous waves of pain that came through. It was blinding. Um, so we'll just do what we can. I did so we did all that stuff. There's a little bit of health update. Let me say a hearty good evening and a hearty thank you for being here and all of that to George. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
How are you feeling? You were dealing with
I'm still coughing a little bit. It's all right.
Yeah.
I
If I'm
coughed out most of my lungs, so
well,
but,
you got two of them.
I grew, I grew new ones,
Right.
kind of like Wolverine in that sense. So
Excellent. Excellent. Actually, entirely growing new body parts would be more of a Deadpool thing, wouldn't it?
yeah, we need
If you
that.
were Wolverine, you never would have had strep throat in the first place.
That's true. That's true.
How cool would it be to have metal bones? Just saying.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I just think it would be. You know what? I would take them. Take them. What was I gonna? I had a thought that I completely lost. What a shocker! Oh, that's wacky. I had a thought that I just completely left out of my head. Anyway, let's get to let me also let me just do one last bit of business, if you will. I do try to say these things straight out the top so that you know them, and if you're watching on the recording, you kind of get the news bit, the program news bit up at the front. We will not be with you for Holy Week. Next Sunday is Palm Sunday. Easter Sunday follows that. I'm not planning to be with you for either Sunday. The 24th, it is Palm Sunday. Yes, it is. Just making sure, looking at my calendar. The 24th is Palm Sunday. Easter actually comes early this year. On the 31st, we will not be with you for either Sunday. And I will remind, all my folks at 101 that I will not be with you for these 2 weeks. Holy Week is exactly that. It is Holy Week. Spend the time with friends, with family, with your faith. If you are a person if you're agnostic and don't have any faith, well, then spend it with the Easter Bunny. Spend it however you wish. But I think they are important days. I think they're significant days, and I think you should spend them, in a better way than this. As important as it is for me to be here, I think it's my duty to do it because I created the damn thing. I better be here. I just think Holy Week is a time that we should, let's take a break from politics, shall we? And just go back to the simpler things like family and so on. So it is let me reverse that. It is my plan not to be with you for the following 2 Sundays, the 24th and 31st, which means we would then return. I closed my calendar too quick. April 7th. April 7th is when we would return to you. Enjoy Holy Week. Easter is obviously, and Passover, of course, happening. I'm not sure what the dates for Passover are, but Passover and Easter usually, of course, coincide. So I wish you, of course, a very blessed and happy Easter, a very blessed and happy Passover. Ramadan is starting as well for our Muslim friends. It is a very, very highly faith-based time of the calendar. So I don't think we need to be talking about the more depressing aspects of politics and so on. So that's the plan. So let's get into so take a break for the next 2 Sundays. Come back and see us on April 7th. Come back and see us on April 7th. That would be the plan. So it has been a health week. I think I just took another one yesterday. I've had a migraine for 10 days that I haven't been able to get. Is it 10? It's closer to 10 than not. Then I've had more of a migraine than not for about 10 straight days. George has had strep throat. I have a kidney stone stuck. Kristen hasn't had the best of weeks. We've both been really goofed up by the time change. I have no idea why it is bothering us so much. The change into daylight savings when you lose an hour has always messed me up, even from the time I was much younger. But it's really gotten to me this time. I haven't been quite right all week. I'm a little further ahead than Kristen is, but it's been a week. It's been a hell of a week. With trying to just sleep and sleep patterns, and just, you would think an hour would not mean that much, but it does. And it can really get you screwed up. And I really just wish, Franz and I were talking about it before we officially went live here on the program, and a bit during a bit of the pre-show and so on. Just pick freaking daylight savings and leave it be. We are not an agrarian society anymore. Daylight savings was originally created, time was originally manipulated to create standard and daylight for agriculture, and it was later justified as so that kids weren't going to the bus in the dark and things like that. But I think we're beyond that now, and if we could just pick daylight savings and kind of leave it at that, and just permanent daylight savings time, I think would be perfectly fine. It's the reason why the mountain time zone disappears. We have mountain time during the winter. Hopefully I'm not getting this correct. It's mountain time during the winter. They don't change clocks. China actually bases its entire, even though the Chinese nation covers, I think, 3 or 4 time zones. They operate their entire country on Beijing time. So even the time zone in the furthest west, Beijing is relatively in the east of the nation. I think there's 3 or 4 different time zones to the west. They don't change. They all work on Beijing Central Time, so that these time zones that are 3 and 4 hours different, it would be like Los Angeles working on New York time, so that when the sun comes up in New York at 6 in the morning, it's 6 in the morning in LA, but it's dark until 10. So it's interesting, I think, how humans have decided to manipulate time, or at least the measurement of it. There was actually a very interesting article. This was not on my original list of things to talk about tonight, but I will bring it up. I read it. I got to be honest with you, I did not grasp all of it. Scientists were able to freeze 2 water molecules in time. I would love to explain to you more how that happened, and how they were able to measure the fact that it was frozen, not just from a liquid to a solid state, or frozen to a point of almost absolute zero where all molecular activity stops, but that they were able to measure that these molecules had been frozen in time. and could be frozen in time ad infinitum, to a point where they are unfrozen and that they would be picking up time from wherever they had been originally. It's very complicated. It's not even just Doctor Who and the TARDIS. It's very complicated stuff. And I consider myself to be relatively bright. But I couldn't entirely explain it to you. I read it and I can't explain I can't even explain it enough to make it understandable. It's very, as I'm stumbling about how to try to explain it to you, I wish I could, and I can't. I will see if I can Google it quick and maybe just read the article, because that's how I should have done it. Water frozen. Let me see if I can find the article. I can't even find it now. Oh, here it is. Popular Mechanics. This is from Popular Mechanics. This was originally published on February 21st. I only saw it this week. And I just think it's so fascinating. I did not have this originally on the show sheet of things to discuss, but I think it's fascinating. And it made me, as we were talking about daylight savings and the kind of the manipulation of time, I remembered this, which is nice. It means that my brain hasn't completely shut down. Close, but not completely shut down. So this was originally published in Popular Mechanics on February 21st of this year, 2024. But again, I only just happened to see it this week, so that's why I'm bringing it up. And the article is authored by Darren Orff, O-R-F. Darren Orff is the author of the article. Headline: Scientists achieve an incredible feat, freezing water's electrons in time. Here's what it takes to pause the perpetual motion of particles. The world of subatomic excitations, which would be the motion of subatomic particles, lives on the timescale of the attosecond, a billionth of a billionth of a second, which is incredibly hard to imagine and to image. An international team of scientists successfully captured the excitation of an electron hit with ionizing radiation, or X-rays, in water before hydrogen-oxygen atoms had time to respond. This atomic freeze frame and other future images like it will help scientists develop a deeper understanding of the structure of molecules. So what they did is they basically stopped the motion of electrons. Electrons are in constant motion. As they move through time, they are constantly moving. If you stop that motion, even in a sub-zero, space is not, there is such a thing as absolute zero, where all motion stops. Space, even though it is a vacuum and exceptionally cold, of course, is also not absolute zero, because there are always different sources of heat. There's always some kind of temperature, but it's the damn closest thing to it. They actually stopped the motion of these electrons, and then in essence, stopping them in time. So I just thought that was fascinating. Maybe you think, maybe I just bored the ever-living you-know-what out of all of you. There's an excellent chance of that. But I found it very fascinating as man continues to, we hope, move forward, as we get closer to, as we continue to proliferate the use of solar and wind energy, more and more electric cars, we are getting closer and closer, seemingly by the week, if not, every few months, we hear something new about getting closer and closer to fusion energy. And when we do, it would be unlimited free clean energy for everybody when we get to fusion. Not overnight, the fusion power plants, of course, would have to be built, but if we can master the power that fuels the sun, it is complete. You know, when you fuse two hydrogen atoms into helium and helium into carbon, I think it is, none of those substances, of course, are toxic. It's completely energy and self-sustaining, by the way. It will transform human society. And as we continue to move forward scientifically as a species, hopefully before we destroy each other, this playing, this deeper examination and kind of playing with the rules of time is just another further extension of it. I don't know. There's a movie. I can't remember what the movie is, where these different criminals go back. They travel back in time and they place bets on certain sporting events. They buy certain stocks, thus changing the timeline so that when they go back to the timeline that they came from, they're wealthy. And I'm sure, Time Cop, is that what it is? Thank you, George. That folks will always find a way to monetize everything. But these are remarkable achievements. And when human beings make these vast and deep and substantive leaps forward in science, I think what we should take away from that is kind of remembering what we are capable of. We went to the moon. We have sent probes outside of our own solar system. There's an article actually this week that NASA has reestablished contact with Voyager 1, which was launched in 1977. It has officially crossed the barrier into interstellar space. Nothing made by man has ever traveled further or further away from Earth. It is in interstellar space. It is outside of the boundaries of our solar system, free floating in interstellar space, but yet still in communication with NASA. These are fantastic human achievements. And it would seem to me that it should give us some optimism about our existence, about our own being, that we can still achieve great things, and that we can do them together as one global human society, and hopefully move ourselves to a more optimistic future where we're not so damn quick to shoot each other. Well, George, it's not the first step to transport. We all know that matter and energy is interchangeable. The fusion generator would be the first one to powering it. But anyway, we're 641 wherever you are on Facebook. We have been able to share the program to 105 different places, plus wherever you have been kind enough to share us. That other side of information is our home group Facebook page, my personal Facebook timeline. Jeff Kennedy's where you'll see us right now. That's where I am saying hello, welcoming everybody, seeing your comments and so on. Come on over and be part of the conversation. If you are watching currently at any of the places that we shared, stay right there. Feel free to stay right there. However, if you comment, ask questions, I'm typing in front of myself in a phantom keyboard, like somehow you can see it and you can't. And I don't know. It's kind of like when we talk about texting, we all do this. I don't know. I'm typing on a fake keyboard down here in front of me. If you are watching on any of the groups that have been kind enough to allow us to share into your corner of the Facebook universe, and you have questions and comments and you type them there, I will probably not see them. I try to look throughout the course of the show to make sure I'm not missing something from any of those places, but I do more often than not miss it. If you want to be a direct part of the conversation, you can call us at 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, or come to my personal Facebook, Jeff Kennedy, where there is a healthy group of folks right now, including two of my cousins, which means more to, and my aunt was here earlier, which means more to me than I can actually explain to you. It gives me it just means a lot. It just means, without getting weepy and all that, just means a lot. That they are here every week. It means everything to me. And you can do what they are doing. Come on over, put your comments and questions in there, drive the conversation, be part of it. Don't just sit back and listen to me lecture. That's not what we're here for. I'm not a professor and I don't play one on the radio. Be part of the program. Hot101.net, and our name is our web address. Listen on any type of device that can connect to the internet anywhere below, on, or above Earth, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Hot101.net, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn Radio app. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net, the TCP Media Group from Lancaster, PA, and the PayGive app. www, he tried to say, .paygive.org. You have to buy things. When you do, you pay for them. Why not give while you do it? The PayGive app, paygive.org. Let me get to a couple of the topics that I wanted to, and that I originally put in our promotions for the program this week. A very, very significant, and I do mean significant, occurrence happened on the Senate floor this week. The Democrats are the majority in the United States Senate. Their majority leader is the senior senator from the state of New York, Chuck Schumer, who is a Jewish man himself. I'm not a huge fan of Senator Schumer. I happen to think he's I think there's a lot about him that is wrong with politics. He has made a career of it. It is his business, not just his job. I do believe that he stands for a lot of issues that I stand for. I think he cares about people. Don't think he's an evil man by any stretch of the imagination. My differences with him are political. They are about policy and issues and implementation of that policy and how the Senate is run. They are not personal. He is not doing anything evil. He's not breaking laws. He's not, he's not beating puppies in his basement. He's not doing any of that. My differences with him are political and policy, and about the structure and operation of the Senate. He is the majority leader. He is the Senate's version of the House Speaker. He decides what legislation comes to the floor for a vote. He decides who's on what committees. He decides who the chairs of those committees are. He assigns legislation to the different committees for committee examination. If a senator has a piece of legislation that they wish to bring forth, they put it on the floor. The majority leader will then decide what committee or committees it goes to, and when it comes to the floor for a final vote for passage. He also decides on certain pieces of legislation not to do anything with them. If he doesn't believe in them or doesn't want to see them move forward, he can just simply ignore it. He is the power in the Senate. Mr. Schumer was in the House of Representatives. He represented a district. He represented a district in New York City. Forgive me that I forget which one and the boundaries of it, but he represented a district in New York City that had a sizable Jewish community. He himself, practicing member of the Jewish faith, a Jewish man and Jewish heritage himself, did it. So while I have a lot of differences with him, I don't think he's effectively used the power of majority leader to push forward Democratic Party issues and policies and solutions and the ideals that we believe in the same way that Mitch McConnell has for Republicans. But okay, he is the majority leader. And he's a pretty damn wealthy man. And his wealth has increased while he has been involved in politics. He was a pretty darn wealthy guy when he was in the House, where he became it. It's become even more so in the Senate. He's also taken a tremendous amount of money over the years, over the 3+ decades that he's been involved in politics. He's taken a tremendous amount of money from different Jewish lobbies, including those that are extremely supportive of Israel, AIPAC, which I think most people would know what AIPAC is, AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee, which tends to hold politicians to a ridiculous level of total Israeli support. No matter what they do, Israel never does anything wrong. They're one of those lobbying groups that if you say anything even that could in any way be twisted or construed as anti-Israeli, they will just hammer you for it relentlessly. They'll do ad campaigns against you. They'll spend money against you, all of that stuff. And he's taken a hell of a lot of their money over the years and from other similar organizations. Well, Majority Leader Schumer went to the floor of the Senate this week and gave a speech about how it is time for a new government and new leadership in Israel. And he made the argument that we have made here on this program, and I'm not the only one, God knows, that many folks have made, that while Israel has every right in the world to exist as a nation, while it has every right to defend itself from military attack, while it does not have to tolerate the terrorism against it, it also does not have the right to commit genocide. And that by and large, its response to the Hamas attack from Gaza into Israeli territory has been unequal. It has been over the top. It has been way more than necessary, more than what was done to it. And acknowledge the fact that it is in Prime Minister Netanyahu's interest, not the interest of peace, not the interest of Israel as a whole, sure as hell not in the interest of the Palestinians, or in any global interest, only Netanyahu's interest, to keep this war going. It's in his personal interest because it's keeping him out of jail. There was a brief few years where Mr. Netanyahu was not prime minister, and he was on trial for corruption, outright just accepting bribes, just taking huge piles of cash for things to get done in Israel. And he was under indictment he's still under indictment for it. And the trials were going to take place. This was part of the reason why not long ago he tried to write into the Israeli constitution to just completely redefine, re-engineer the entire judicial system of Israel to keep his own ass out of jail. And all of that has been set to the side while this war has taken place. So it is in his interests to keep this war going. It's in nobody else's interest, except maybe the American defense manufacturers. It's not in the interest of Israel. It's not in the interest of the Palestinians, the region. Peace, the idea and ideal of peace. It's in Mr. Netanyahu's own personal interest to keep this war going. And we have seen slowly, all too slowly, the governments of Western Europe and the United States begin to move away from Mr. Netanyahu. The delivering of food, aid, and medical supplies direct to the Palestinians in Gaza by the United States is a significant move, and it's a significant middle finger to Mr. Netanyahu, who would not allow aid into Gaza. We are airlifting and airdropping supplies in. Again, not nearly enough, but something is better than literally nothing. The United States is building a pier where things can be unloaded off of ships now. And so Mr. Schumer went to the floor of the Senate and said it's time for a change in government in Israel. Mr. Netanyahu has to go. Now, he was very careful to say that this is something that the Israeli people must do for themselves. No foreign interference, none of that. He was making a direct appeal to the people of Israel to do better, that they need new leadership. They need a new government. It's a very, very significant thing. And it's a big step, I think, toward peace in that area, or at least at a minimum, a cessation of hostilities for however long that might last. Mr. Schumer himself is Jewish. He is arguably the second most powerful elected Democrat in the country, behind the president, maybe third behind the vice president, because the Speaker of the House is a Republican. So he is arguably the third most powerful Democratic Party elected official in the nation. He runs the agenda of the Senate and went to the floor on camera, knowing he would be recorded, quoted, interviewed about it, asked about it, and said, Israel needs a new government. It needs a new leader, a new prime minister, a new leadership team, that this war has to end. It's very, very significant. Now, is it going to change anything? Well, so far, no. It hasn't changed anything. But that doesn't make the step any less significant. It's a beginning of what I hope will be a shift within the Senate and within the American government generally to do what Bernie Sanders has been talking about doing it. Senator Sanders, the independent senator of Vermont. If you're unaware who the hell Bernie Sanders is, I don't know who doesn't know who he is by now, but if you're unaware, to say that we should not be giving Israel another dime. Senator Sanders also pushed very hard to airlift supplies directly into Gaza. He supports and supported, to the best of my knowledge, somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, the building of that pier so that supply ships could be unloaded directly into Gaza, circumventing the Israelis and the Netanyahu government and the Israeli Defense Forces. He has called for an end to hostilities. So for Senator Schumer, the majority leader, to also pick up those calls is a big deal. It might not seem like it. I especially think sometimes, and I could be wrong, I very much could be wrong, I tend to think sometimes, especially younger voters, will say to them, they tend to get frustrated when things don't happen immediately. Okay, well, Senator Schumer went to the floor, gave this speech, and Netanyahu's still in power. Well, these things don't just happen. When Senator Schumer finishes his sentence saying that Israel needs new leadership, it doesn't just happen that way. A man is corrupt to the core, rotten to the core, as Benjamin Netanyahu is not walking out of that office, probably unless he's drug out either dead or in chains. He's been prime minister on and off for the better part of 30 years. There's been a couple spells in between there where he hasn't been. Remember, Israel has a parliamentary system. So whoever is the head of the majority party is prime minister. So there's been a few years in there where Rabin was prime minister. I think there's only been about 6 years, maybe it is, that he has not been prime minister in the last 30. It's actually very Putin-esque. And Senator Schumer, being the head of the majority in the Senate, third most powerful Democratic elected official in the country, who has taken millions from Israeli-backed lobbies to go to the floor and say it's time for a change in leadership. The Israeli people need to change leadership. They must do it on their own. This war must stop. We must allow food and medicine into Gaza. You cannot exterminate the Palestinian people. It's important. It's very, very important for him to have said that. And just because things didn't change 10 seconds after he said it does not make what he said any less significant, because it is. And he deserves a lot of credit for it. It's not a universally popular position to take within the circles that Mr. Schumer leads his life. Not just his political life, but his own personal and religious and faith-based life and his family life. It's not a particularly popular thing that he did within those circles, but he did it anyway. And good for him. And good for Senator Sanders. And for the growing calls from both parties. Yeah. Republicans aren't a party, we know that, but for the sake of the efficacy of the discussion, from folks from all ends of the political spectrum to say this has to stop. It's growing. It's getting there. It's taken too long, but we're getting there. 7 p.m. Entering the second hour of the Kennedy Effect, live with you for St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2024. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you. Happy spring to all of you. The unofficial beginning of spring, St. Patrick's Day. I am wearing my it's old. I think it might be 20 years old. Irish national team football jersey. Football meaning football that you play with your feet. Soccer here in the States. Symbol of the FAI. They're the Football Association of Ireland. So happy St. Patrick's Day. The single highest identified nationality, heritage, fill in the blank, in the United States. Interesting. Boy, the Irish know how to be fruitful and multiply, don't we? Wherever you are on Facebook, thank you for allowing us to be part of your St. Patrick's Day. As we put out in our show announcements, come finish your celebrations with us. Thank you for doing exactly that. If you have missed any of the first hour of the program, please always remember that when our program is done, it is on our YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information, which is also the name of our Facebook group for all things surrounding the Kennedy Effect, the news that we talk about, the articles that we reference, the issues that are important to us. And also lots of other stuff that is non-political there. Again, science stories, astronomical stories, stories on the environment, and animal welfare stories, of course. So wherever you are on Facebook, you can stay right where you are, continue to watch, listen, do whatever you're doing, getting ready for to go back to work tomorrow, get the kids back to school, whatever it is that you might be working on. Stay right there. Enjoy. We are simply glad that you are here. If you want to come over and be part of the conversation, which has been very, very quiet, and I think actually might give me a license to get the hell out of here early and try to continue to take care of this wonderful kidney, which continues to literally be a real pain in my, you know what. But come on over to my own personal Facebook, Jeff Kennedy. It's right there on the screen, and come send us your comments, your questions, drive the conversation, be part of it. Don't just be a listener, be active, be part of the conversation. Also, of course, our friends and our family at hot101.net. Our name is our web address. If you can connect to the internet anywhere below, on, or above planet Earth, you can listen to hot101.net 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you should be. Remember, coming up after us live on hot101.net and live on our Facebook group, That Other Side of Information, is The Villain's View, coming up live at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The Villain's View live 9 o'clock, hot101.net. That Other Side of Information. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. You can listen on our main website. You can also use our apps, Apple App Store for Apple devices, Google Play Store for Android, and the Tune In radio app. Bluetooth it to anything you can Bluetooth it to. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net as well. Proud to be part of the TCP Media Group from Lancaster, PA. They continue to be an exceptionally important voice in the community, and you should be paying attention to them on Facebook. 50,000 plus followers on Facebook. You need to be checking them out. A very, very, very important voice in the Lancaster area and Pennsylvania and human community as a whole. TCP. Check them out. Our loan sponsor is the PayGive app, www. I can't say my W's today. Isn't that lovely? I'm trying to do it too quickly. That's why. Never good for the radio personality that cannot enunciate. www.paygive.org. The PayGive app, a financial transaction app. These apps make their money by charging you a fee for moving your money around. What's different about PayGive? They take a portion of that fee and they designate it to a charity of your choice. There are children's charities, veterans charities, educational charities, health-related charities, and of course, my personal favorite, animal welfare charities. On and on and on. You can tell PayGive to take a percentage of that fee and send it to these particular the charity of your choice. www.paygive.org and the PayGive app. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? I want to talk about let me see if I can knock a quick one out of the way here, because I don't know how much longer I can do this. My kidney is really barking at me, and my left shoulder, I would really like to just remove it. Somebody is trying to shove something in there and it doesn't fit. And that's entirely what it feels like somebody's trying to shove a pipe into my shoulder and it doesn't fit. Pain in my left shoulder is just ridiculous. And boy, is it annoying. I can't seem to shut that pain down. It doesn't matter what I take. That said, we have our presidential nominees, both President Biden and ex-President Trump, formally received the delegates that they need to be the nominees this past week. And while many in the media, let me back up. When you have 24-hour, 7-day-a-week cable news networks, they don't just present the news to you. They don't just present it in an infotainment break the news down kind of way. They don't just interpret the news for you. They have to almost generate news. They have to almost generate stories to bring to you. Because unless you're going to report every traffic accident, every murder, every lost dog, every house fire, all across the country, the things that local news are very much based on: house fires, crimes, murders, traffic tie-ups, weather events. Unless the big national cable news outlets are going and news organizations are going to do that, they don't just have to bring you the news. They interpret it. They tell you what to think about it. But they sometimes have to generate stories. And I'm not talking about investigative journalism. I'm talking about just making stories. It is my belief that one of the reasons that presidential campaigns are now constant, and election campaigns in general are now constant. There's never a time where you're not campaigning. If you're a member of the United States House of Representatives, or even the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives, or most state houses across the country where the terms are only 2 years, in days gone by, you could run for re-election and you probably wouldn't have to think about running for re-election until maybe the spring of the year that you need to run, which would be spring. If you were elected in days way gone by, if you were elected on election day 1978, you probably wouldn't have to start campaigning for re-election in earnest until March of 1980. You could actually do nothing but legislate for a good 18 months. And you wouldn't really have to worry about, well, now it's constant. Members of the U.S. House are told that they need to raise $1 million a month if they want to be reelected. They should be raising staggering amounts of money. And the next campaign starts about 10 seconds after the first one ended. So, an election day 2024, the end of this cycle, the very next day, you will start to see the media talk about who's running for president in 2028. And more locally in your states, who will be the one to take the next Senate seat or to challenge the sitting senator? Who will be and this is constant. And the media drives this because it's good TV. People are interested in elections. Elections bring eyeballs and clicks. In combination with Citizens United, I believe that the media, including 24-hour cable news, regardless of what end of the spectrum you're on, has driven what is now an endless campaign cycle. So the fact that we have our nominees now, it's going to be very interesting to see how the media handles that. There's been very little drama to the presidential nominating campaign so far on both sides of the aisle. So what have we done? We've generated stories that surround the campaign. Oh, President Biden's too old. Constant Democrats polling an X% that are worried about his age. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, of course, is only 2.5 years younger than President Biden. Ronald Reagan was the same age as both men when he served as president. But we don't talk about any of that. We have to generate news. We have to generate stories. An itchy ear. So we have to make stories. Funny to me, by the way, how only President Biden is old. We only talk about his age and his capacity to handle the office. Meanwhile, Trump travels across the country occasionally and spews absolute shite out of his mouth. Sentences that make no sense, sentences that just trail off into nothingness. Speeches where he thinks Nikki Haley is the Speaker of the House and that President Obama is still president. But we don't talk about that too much. We just talk about the fact that Joe Biden's 81. And remarkable how we don't talk about the fact that Trump is 78 or 79, 2.5 years younger, I believe. But we have to generate stories. And we like to generate campaign-related stories because campaigns bring people to clicks and eyeballs to screens. So now we have our nominees. Both men have achieved the delegate count they need to be the nominees for their parties. One other theme that the media continues to push that I think is complete crap is that this is a rematch, as if it were a sporting event or if it were somehow American Idol. Is it the same two men running against each other? Yes. Has this happened before in American history? Yes. Is it a rematch? Well, to kind of tie into the discussion that we were having earlier in the program about time, I suppose a very simplistic way of talking about it would be this rematch, except that it's not the same thing. President Biden has been president now for 4 years. Mr. Trump served a term, well, occupied the White House for a term. He doesn't serve anyone other than himself. But he was in the office. These men are not the same as they were when they ran 4 years ago. 4 years ago, Mr. Trump didn't have 91 counts of criminality against him. He had not yet been ruled and determined by a judge to have committed rape. And let's remember the judge in the E. Jean Carroll case who awarded her $83.3 million said that Mr. Trump raped her. Raped her. We didn't have that 4 years ago. So I guess, is it a rematch insofar as that the same two men are running against each other? Okay. But is it a rematch insofar as that these two men are the same men? Because not really. Biden has a list of accomplishments to run on. He has a real genuine record to run on. He has failures to run on. He has failures to be used against him, to be campaigned against him. Trump is a living failure, and that can be run against him too. He has a record to be run against. And the fact that he did occupy the office for 4 years makes him substantially more dangerous than he was the first time that he ran. Substantially more dangerous. Because now he knows how to use the office. So yeah, yay, hooray, we have our nominees. Let the campaign begin. And obviously, we'll be talking a ton about the campaign throughout this calendar year on this program. There's no need to get too terribly deep into and deep policy analyses of each. There'll be plenty of time for that. And the campaign will provide us tremendous numbers of stories throughout this cycle. There will be, a dozen different rallies that Trump tries to tell you that there's 20,000 people in front, and somebody in the media will take a shot back where about 500 people are shoved up at the front of the stage to make the camera shot full while there's an empty arena behind them. We'll see stories like that throughout the year. We'll see stories where President Biden tripped on a step on the way up to Air Force One. And he will, and we'll see that. We'll talk about it for 3 days about, see, look, he can't handle it. So all of that is coming. Interestingly, and I don't know if that happened this week or last week, and I forgot to mention it to you. Trump is the one that said, I will debate Biden anytime, anywhere. Well, I ain't holding my breath. I'll believe it when I see it. Generally speaking, in politics, it is the sitting office holder, the incumbent, that has more to lose in a debate than the challenger. But considering that Trump is so devoid, and willfully so, of facts and of policy knowledge and of issue knowledge, he still has more to lose in a debate than would President Biden. So I will not hold my breath for said debates. Let me move on to what is, I think, probably the biggest topic of the week. There was 4 of them, and I wish I could remember what they all were. Oh, I can do this one quickly too. The week in Trump court news. The fact that Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney Fonnie Willis was allowed to stay on the case if she let go the other prosecutor that she's in a relationship with. I found the media's reaction to that very interesting. And I'm not just talking about right-wing hate media compared to other media outlets. There was just such a very wide variety of reactions and a wide variety of reporting done that this was a huge victory for Trump. This was a huge victory for Fani Willis. Here's the bottom line of it. The case will continue. She's going to prosecute this case. She's simply going to do it without the man that she's in a romantic relationship with. And there were so many finger shakers this week. How dare she have a relationship with him? Oh, stop. Stop it. Nobody else in the world has dated anybody that they've worked with. No one. And that the relationship was already underway before she brought him into this case is my understanding. It's not like it just happened. And that somehow she brought him in as some type of nepotism related type thing. He's also one of the leading RICO case lawyers in all of Georgia, is my understanding. Nobody else on the planet has ever dated anybody they've worked with. Look, for me, I live a lot in the gray areas. I try to explain to you folks who are kind enough to be part of our program that life is in the gray areas. It's not black and white. It's not binary. It's not 1 or 0. up or down, wet or dry. Life is in the gray areas. But at the same time that I do that with you, I try to still somehow find Arkham's razor. The simplest explanation is probably the truth. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. I just butchered Arkham's razor. I should probably Google that and read it the right way. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Here's the bottom line of it. Whether you think Fonnie Willis should have ever started a relationship with this guy or not is irrelevant. Whether they're in one or not is irrelevant. To be honest, when she brought him into the case, whether they were already in a relationship or the relationship developed as the case was developing, is irrelevant. The bottom line of the story is she is the duly, legally, openly, fairly elected district attorney of Fulton County, which is Atlanta, in Georgia. And she has an open and shut case on Trump because she's got it on tape. Fellas, they just need to find 11,000 votes. It's recorded. It's on tape. The important part of the story is that the trial will continue. There's not a judge or a jury in the country, on the planet, who can hear that tape and not say guilty as charged. That, to me, is the important part of this. The fact that there's a 30-day delay, another 30-day delay in the hush money case in New York City is disappointing, but yet at the end of the day, probably not all that significant. That case is going forward. It's going to be tried before the election. Another 30 days at this point probably doesn't make a difference. And DA Bragg bought himself, I think, a lot of credibility here with the judge and the courts. Because when the Trump team says, we want a delay, and he says, yeah, okay, sounds good to me. I agree. I think it will all the further strengthen his case and his point of view the next time the Trump team says, we want another delay, and another, and another, and another. And he says, no, I think we've had enough delays now. I've agreed to this one. He might agree to even 2 or 3 more, maybe. But I have every belief in my heart that this is going to get tried before the election. The disturbing part of this, I think, for all of you to take away from this, regardless of your political beliefs about surrounding Mr. Trump, are this. And I happen to think that this is pretty obvious. Here's what should bother you, is that we don't all operate under the same justice system. If Mr. Trump was a 17-year-old black kid named whatever, shouldn't even get into that. If Mr. Trump was a 17-year-old black kid from the South Bronx named James Washington, and he had been stopped for jaywalking and found a 1/4 ounce of pot in his pocket, he'd already have been tried and sentenced. But because a so-called billionaire, older white male who tried to end the American government, he gets delay after delay after delay after delay. And he gets to form multiple political action committees and take over the remnants of a former political party and have all these people pay his bills for him, I think ultimately, and I'm not sure that this is something that we can only possibly do through historical hindsight, is that the part that should bother you the most is exactly that. If Mr. Trump was a 14-year-old Mexican American in Phoenix, Arizona, and had a pocket full of pot, he would not be able to delay and delay and delay and delay and do GoFundMes and political action committees to pay and take over a political party to pay all his bills for him. If Mr. Trump was a 27-year-old gorgeous model-like redheaded woman from Texas who needed to leave to get reproductive health care and faced arrest upon her return to Texas, which is what Texas is like now, there would be no delay. GoFundMe for my medical and legal bills. The differences in the application of the American justice system is what should bother you here. I try to make it a point here on this program not to tell you what to think, but to try to get you to think. But this might be one of those exceptions, because this is what should bother you. If you are the most ardent supporter of Mr. Trump and you think he's under political assault, maybe you revel and you crack open a bud certainly not a Bud Light, that you crack open a beer every time he gets awarded another delay. It would never happen for you. If you are the most ardent, college-aged, progressive, Trump-hating person that you could possibly name, and you think he hasn't been, not enough bad things could happen to him, and you're pissed off because he's not already in jail, well, you should be. Because again, if that was you in his place, you wouldn't be able to do what he's doing. I've had guests on this program say, I disagree, there are not multiple justice systems in this country. And with respect to all those people who have said that, bullshit. Yes, there are. An old white Republican billionaire can get away with a hell of a lot more crap than a poor young black man. Now, you would say to yourself, how would a poor young black man be in a position to overthrow the American government? Agreed. And so from that standpoint, the analogy is not a clean one. But again, here's the truth of it. Mr. Trump can delay and delay and delay. By some unknown factor, he continues to find lawyers to represent him, even though he never pays any of them. He's completely taken over the Republican National Committee now. His daughter-in-law is now co-chair, but functionally the chair. And she has said in public, all monies that come into the Republican National Committee should go to one person, and that's Donald Trump, for his legal bills and his reelection. So I guess if you're a House candidate somewhere in this country and you want help from the Republican National Committee, don't hold your breath. Are you a Senate candidate somewhere? Don't hold your breath. Because the people that have taken over the RNC at the hand-picked direction of Donald Trump think he's the only person that Republicans should care about and should finance and work for. All the rest of your candidates across the country, tough shit on you. Too bad. So when we look at the week past in Trump trials, victory for Fani Willis? Maybe not. She's been embarrassed nationally. But the bottom line is that and the most important part is that the trial will go on. Happy about a 30-day delay in New York City? I'm not. But I think ultimately it's not the end of the world. DA Bragg has said the trial will go forward. This will happen before the election. What should piss you off is the complete double standard here, if not triple or quadruple standard. That the old white billionaire gets to just put everything off and never face justice or accountability for what he's done. It can't happen fast enough. But a 17-year-old black kid from Chicago or Los Angeles or Detroit or Miami or Philadelphia who might get stopped for jaywalking with an eighth of an ounce of pot in their pocket. I'm clicking on it. God, even the freaking thing doesn't work. That kid with an eighth of an ounce of pot in their pocket is in Rikers in 12 hours. So, Randall, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, I went to Dr. Monday, and yeah, I got acute bronchitis again. That's why I'm still. I have to go back. I've got to get another round of.
You got very faint. I don't know what you're doing, but you got very faint.
How am I
There you
now?
go. There you go. There you go.
Okay. I want to get back to what I was saying earlier. You know, I'm almost 72, and I was working in a nonprofit. Met my wife 45 years ago. Well, we're almost, June 23rd. We're gonna be married 40 years. If I hadn't worked there, if she hadn't worked there, we would never have met, and we would not have our love for each other today. So I have no problem with dating. Dating a coworker at work, unless it's in a boss to an underling situation. I have no work with with people dating each other at work, and I think that's a problem today. People don't have too many people. Let's say millennials and Generation Z. They don't have real person-to-person experience. They're on social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not reality. That's not life. That's not how you meet somebody. That's not how you either yes or no gain love for that person. That's not how interrelation real life is missing, and too much is missing in our society today.
Well, do you happen to agree with me that ultimately, after all of this tabloid crap is out of the way, that the real important part of this story from this week is that the trial will go on?
Well, absolutely. This was all a sideshow.
It was delay. It was engineered delay.
Especially with all of Trump's lawyers grilling, in my opinion, ridiculous questions to throw it to the side to delay a trial once again. And
Because
the other thing I was going to
when you can't win, when you can't win the trial, when you're guilty as sin, all you have is delay and distraction. He's on tape. He's recorded. The phone call's recorded. Fellas, I just need you to find me 11,000 votes. Guilty. Done.
I thought the judge throughout that part of there was 5 things the judge throughout this week that actually was a win for former number 45.
Not the.
And I thought that was
not the tape. Even fine. So throw out the tape. Brad Raffensperger gets put on the stand under oath. Did he say this to you? Yes. Done. This is a damn easy trial. The fact that it takes this long to do something that's this damn obvious is really frustrating. It is constant now. Constant. Every American, I don't care what political persuasion you come from. I don't care what your economic background is. I don't care what your skin color is. Should be really, really frustrated at the snail's pace that our judicial system works under, especially the more and more and more money that you have. Fani Willis bringing this case, even the fact that it took her almost a year to investigate it. Are you kidding? It's on tape. How long did it take to interview the people involved? And the fact that she brought these charges, over a year ago now? Dear God in heaven. If you had a picture of, you go back to Trump's quote about if I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. How the hell long would it take for a trial? A video of him shooting and killing somebody on Fifth Avenue. Would it still take 5 years? Just to even get to the point where the Georgia case is? Dear God, this is insane. I know that these safeguards and the appeal process and some of the delay and so on is built into the system so that trials are not reactionary, but that they follow procedure in the law. We don't have enough judges. We do not have enough courts. We do not have enough. The infrastructure of our judicial system has been allowed to degrade to such a point where these trials are now dragging on for years instead of months. It should bother everybody. Mr. Trump deserves a fair trial as much as any other American. But dear God in heaven, does it have to take this long? Especially when the evidence is so cut and dry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Anyway, I lost my train of thought listening to you. I apologize.
No, go ahead. I do it all the time. I lose my own train of thought listening to myself.
One thing that you didn't bring up this week is slowly but surely research is coming out on the 1,000 COVID. I've got a friend from childhood, around my age, that's fellow parishioner at my little small Presbyterian church down here in Delaware County, and he's got respiratory long-term COVID, and it's bad. And I just read there's 15 million adults and 1 million children in this country with long-term COVID. And again, there's 1,000 variants of it, of how it can affect you physically in your body. And they're just starting real long-term research on it because, hey, it was a new disease when it broke out in China in 2019. Yeah, it's totally new. We've been dealing with the flu for 2,500 years. We've probably been dealing with the cold for they need to be retrained to recognize symptoms of long-term COVID, number one. Instead of going, oh, it's just and blah, blah, blah. More research needs to be done because it appears that most long-term COVID people have had COVID 2 or more times. So luckily, I'm the only one in my family, immediate family, that never had COVID. First go round, which I think was the alpha or beta. My oldest daughter lived here in her early 30s then. She lost her sense of smell and taste. And those senses somewhat have finally come back. But that was one of the early milder versions of COVID. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, two things. First off, thank you for asking my thoughts. I interrupt you, I think, so much because you bring things up and I want to, things that I either forgot or that I just want to talk about. You bring up good things. So it's probably why I keep interrupting you all the time, which I should not do. That said, you asked, you were kind enough to ask, I will tell you. Two things happened with that this week that I want to talk about. And that is, shocker of all the people in the world who would do this, Bernie Sanders did, I reposted it on Twitter, and I still call it Twitter, by the way. I reposted his video on Twitter talking about how the American health system, such as it is going to have to deal with the fact that long COVID is a real thing. It exists. I do not think that I happen to have long COVID. I don't think that's true, but I can tell you that there are some lasting effects that I have from COVID. I don't think it qualifies as long COVID, but I do have lasting effects from it. So does Kristen. I only had it once that I'm aware of. It knocked us out for a whole month. I get dizzy still. It happened actually quite a number of times this week where I can just be walking and suddenly I'm just dizzy. And I do have times that it's rough to put my thoughts together. I just kind of get lost. Almost like I'm separated back from myself. But Senator Sanders did a video on Twitter earlier this week about how long COVID exists. It's real. And that the health system, such as it is, including Medicare, by the way, we have to cover what's related to long COVID. We can't just ignore it or refuse to pay for it, but that the private system and Medicare is going to have to pay for these things. And if it takes legislation for it to be done, then he's willing to do that. Second thing I want to mention very quickly. You know, back in the dark ages, we thought the earth was the center of the universe and that all of the celestial bodies revolved around us. And then science took place, and we realized that the sun was at the center. And then we realized that we're only one of 8 planets, and then we advanced even further that there are stars like our sun all throughout the galaxy, that our solar system is not terribly special. It's actually quite middle of the road. We have found thousands of planets outside of our solar system, and that a certain percentage of them are within the Goldilocks zone and available and available. That's not the right, appropriate to house life. So does that mean that everything that we learned from the time that we thought the earth was flat in the center of the universe, all the science and learning after that is garbage? Of course not. It's the nature of science. So when Randall very correctly mentions that we continue to learn about COVID because, by the way, it was a quote unquote novel virus, meaning new, meaning we didn't know anything about it. It doesn't mean that everything that we thought we knew and then we correct is then garbage. It means that the science continues. It means that we continue to study and learn. We don't know what we don't know until we learn it. That's the nature of science. But then science doesn't lie. It is as far as we think we can push it at that time. Folks thought the earth was flat in the center of the universe, not out of science. They thought it out of faith and fear and tradition and mythology. Science corrected it. When science taught us that the earth was round, there were still a number of people who thought it was at the center of the universe. Science then corrected that. It didn't change the fact that the earth was round. We corrected it. We learned. We studied. It is very much the same thing with this virus. Randall is 100% correct to bring it up. We don't know what we don't know until we learn it. And it doesn't mean that we were stupid, that we didn't know it sooner, or that we thought A when actually B was true. That's entirely the nature of learning and of science. It just means that we were wrong. And we learned better. We learned something new. We studied more. We did a deeper, wider, more involved study with more people. It's the nature of science. Randall's 100% right. Everybody, when we were, it's no worse than the cold when it first began to proliferate around the globe. It's just the cold. Then it was just the flu, except that it's killing people at a disproportionate rate. And so we learned. Actually, the development of the vaccines and treatments for COVID. I talked early on in the program about how sometimes these major scientific achievements are what should give us hope about the ability of mankind, of humankind, about the distances that we can travel as far as our own development. When I talked earlier in the program about being on the precipice of finally harnessing fusion and freezing molecules in time and the manipulation of time itself, the fourth dimension, by the way, of time itself. These are advancements. These are scientific advancements so powerful and so deep and so transformational. We should look at the treatment of COVID in the very same way. This very brand new virus that has been brought under control in just 4 years. The Spanish flu had to circle the globe. A vaccine was never really developed for it. It simply traveled around the globe and killed, what, a third of the population? And that was just in the beginning of the 1900s. Not that long ago. And it was really only through the people dying from it that died from it, the people that it didn't kill developing a herd immunity, and the advancements of sanitation, cleanliness within hospital and medical environments. There was no vaccine for the Black Plague in the medieval times either. It simply ran its course. COVID didn't run its course throughout the globe. We stopped it. We put it under control. That's a scientific advancement by collective human beings around the globe to save others. It's something that should give us hope and some optimism. But the long COVID part of it, Randall is completely correct. And Senator Sanders has now picked up on this, talking about how the private health insurance company is going to have to cover this stuff. They can't just walk away from it. It's not a quote unquote pre-existing condition. And Medicare is going to have to cover it as well. And Randall's very, very correct for mentioning it. It was actually a big deal this week. I did not have that on my show sheet, but you're very, very astute for bringing it up, and I appreciate that you did.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned to you, private message or maybe on some previous show. I am 1,000% vaccination. My mother, she lost her 3 younger siblings on their homestead in Anthony, Kansas. The first was her 4-year-old brother to whooping cough, and that went through the community. And then her first sister at 15, when diphtheria went through the community. And then her last closest sister, obviously, because her last sister didn't die till she was 21. Died of diphtheria. So the Sampson family, we are 1,000% pro-vaccine. I lost my eyesight in 3rd grade. Why? I had the worst. I had what was classified German. 2 weeks out of school, I was totally blind, and that's where my eyesight started to go. So anybody out there now, measles popping up
Yep.
whether it's in communities that are anti-vax communities, or whether it's they didn't have the resources, the countries they came from, or among immigrants. But I don't know. You're probably young enough. You still have the scar on your shoulder from your live smallpox vaccine, right?
I think I do actually. I know what you're talking about. The little round where the skin looks a little. Yeah. I think I do. That's a really good question. I think it's just such a part of me. I never really think about it, but yeah, I think I might.
Freezers to use in the future as a weapon.
They get smoked. Here in the state? No, actually, I think they might. I think that might be part of the inoculation calendar. You are gone again. Your 1920s radio. What is happening to your phone?
I'm lowering it. I got a flip phone. It keeps lowering and I get away from the pickup. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm getting you plug-in earphones or something. I just every now and then you drop out and it sounds like old 1920s radio and like you're 8 miles away from the microphone. It gets very tinny and we can't hear you.
Yeah, well, I got this cheap flip phone.
Hey, if that's all you need, we
Anyway, God forbid polio comes back.
yeah.
Children are brutal people. Yes,
They can be.
brutal people, especially elementary and middle school. But I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, till 11, little past 11 and a half. When my father got transferred here in February of '63 to Berthold Helicopter Plant here in Delaware County, PA. And yeah, we had been vaccinated and we'd gone for the mass oral, with thousands of people on a Sunday afternoon for polio earlier in my life. And then this poor family moved up from Arkansas for the father to find work in Wichita. And they rented our backyard. There was a sand alley. And then on the other side, which was facing a main street, there were all these giant Victorian houses, which, it had probably 12 kids. Level, because it's cheaper, because you got to walk up 2 flights of stairs, outside stairs. And to our elementary school. And this boy started limping probably about September on his way to school. And it got worse and worse. And I said, children are absolutely monsters. and we started taunting him on the way to school because he's limping.
Well, we've
When
no.
it was funny kid. It was funny kid.
Mhm.
And they carried down a stretcher, 2 flights of outdoor stairs. They never polio vaccine in Arkansas. Arkansas government at time did not pay for mass polio vaccination. So
And that's why the government paid for COVID vaccinations for everybody to eliminate that concern or excuse, depending on your point of view, to receive it is if you didn't have to worry about how to pay for it, you had one big less reason to not get it. And that's why government paid for it and covered it. And they've stopped. And so has the percentage of people getting vaccinated. Some insurance companies do cover it.
Medicare still does.
But well, yet again, another advertisement for Medicare for all. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, that's that belittling that you were talking about is going to take me in a different direction, if you don't mind. And that is
Go ahead.
this modern political discourse that began with Nixon, was intensified under Reagan, was weaponized by Karl Rove and the George W. Bush administrations, and has now become just almost a matter of fact in the way that the rest of us breathe or walk. It's become almost a reflex action from the right now. This belittling, childish, beat up on the playground and take your milk money, point, laugh, jeer, beat up because you're different. That sort of it's become second nature of Trumpism now. It's become it's a foundation of Trumpism. This very childish sort of thing that we look back on when we grow up and get mature, hopefully get mature, and say, God, how did I do such a thing? It's become part and parcel of Trumpism. And I deeply look forward to the time when the cultists either leave us or break out of it and go, wow, how did I do that? I tuned in. I make much more of an effort, especially when I am able to carry the program all the way up to 9 o'clock and we can do a really smooth handover into the villain's view. I make a much more of an effort to tune into the beginning, at least the beginning parts of the program, because they're simply on too late for me. I have to go to bed. I get up at 5 a.m. for work. But one thing I did catch last week was Thomas and the group, and Gambit happens to be listening to the program now, which I'm deeply honored by the way, big man. So thrilled that you're here. It really does mean a lot to me. Truly does. I mean, feel free to drop comments or questions or something that you want us to talk about. I really do. I deeply appreciate that you're here. It does mean it means a great deal to me. that they were talking about Trump and Trumpism, and somebody started talking about the red hats and so on, and the red MAGA hat, which has become almost a caricature. And I'm reminded of the quote, which I butcher terribly, from the book of Revelation, when it talks about the Antichrist, which is that you will know the followers by the mark across their forehead. And when you wear the red MAGA hat, where does that saying go? It goes across your forehead.
Exactly.
And it's a shame and a stain that many of these people will have to carry with them till the end of their days. They'll never get out from under it. I look forward. I shouldn't say look forward because it's really mean. It's very, very not a thing for someone of faith to say. After Mr. Trump passes this earth, and he's 78, he's obese. I can't imagine that that's going to be too terribly much longer. I think it's not to use a figure of speech, it's a small miracle he's made it this far. But after he passes from this plane of existence is when you're going to start to you'll see a power vacuum, and you'll see a group of people who try to be the next him, including his own kids. But you'll also see the apology chores start. I can't believe I did that. I never really believed it or thought he was all that great. I just kind of followed along. You'll see the apology chores begin. And I'm reminded again of that quote from the book of Revelation. Well, you still have you might have put the hat in the closet, but you still have it. And that's going to be an interesting time in our society. And I don't just mean politically, but as a society, as a nation, as a community. It's going to be a very interesting time when that apology tour starts. And it will. And it will. Dictators of this level rarely hand the dictatorship down. Really, only South Korea or maybe the Saudi royal family has managed to hand that level of national control down seamlessly. Trump is a dictator. He's not a would-be dictator. He is one and will be one if he's returned to office. But after he should pass this plane of existence, I suspect that the people who want to be the next him will tear themselves apart rather than have some sort of peaceful hand down of the mantle, if you will. I don't think you're going to have several politicians and Don Jr. and these all kind of get into the wrestling match for the crown. And none of them will wear it correctly or wear it in the way that Trump himself has. And then it's going to be interesting, like I said, to see the apology tours, and you're seeing some of the apology tour already happening. But the former Vice President Mike Pence saying, I can't vote for Trump. He does not deserve a second term. So some of that's already, they're distancing themselves from it and trying to walk away from it, either from anywhere from actually being trying to be genuine and altruistic about it, all the way to just trying to say they're on historical asses. Could be anything in between. But it's interesting. I mean, it's really interesting.
Or it could be being there that day on January 6th when Trump's Gestapo mob had stormed the Capitol. And they're screaming out, kill Mike Trump. I mean, excuse me.
Yeah, I know. Did we lose you?
Kill Vice President Pierce.
Pence.
Excuse me. Um, well, that's interesting. We just said that eventually there might be a forgiveness tour or whatever. I probably won't last that long. So I'll leave it to my children and grandchildren.
Right.
Back to just to finish off what I wanted to say. When I saw that fellow classmate in my elementary school get taken down by stretcher by the ambulance to go to the hospital and be put in an iron lung, and then to find out many years later he died on that iron lung from polio.
I saw that.
How,
That's an interesting one. Yeah, that was one has to wonder what kind of existence that was.
fucking laying down and looking at a 45-degree mirror to somebody behind you, you know? Or maybe they changed it with technology, put a screen, television screen, but or a CCTV screen. But the point is, and you talked about it. I don't know which show ago. It might have been last week. It was probably 2 weeks ago. You talked about it when the group banged out.
You keep fading in and out, brother.
Because how's that now?
I'm not. Please, I'm not trying to pick on you. We keep losing you. You're going in and out.
All right, hold on.
Just hold the microphone up to keep it.
All right,
mouth,
is that
all.
better?
Yes.
All right. Okay. A couple of weeks ago, when your guest banged out,
Yes.
nonprofit, because RK Jr. used in the Super Bowl what you used to open your program, which means your program is progressive, at least your belief.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the greatest anti-vaxxer in the whole friggin' world. And again, because of my family history, and I never even told you about what happened on my father's side history with all the preventable mass diseases going through their communities and cycles over the years, growing up on his homestead in Missouri. Yeah, again, I am 1,001% supporter of vaccines. And all these anti-vaxxers out there, hey, you know what? I wish they had an island to put you on so that you could only infect each other and couldn't infect anyone else.
The irony of that is that they would develop their own herd immunity at some point, which is, I guess, the irony.
Maybe. Or they might all die off.
You better take care of yourself this week.
Well, I'm going to the doctor again tomorrow.
Oh.
But anyway, I'm a sci-fi extraordinaire. And Robert Heinlein, who after his death was given the title of Dean of Science Fiction, back in the 50s, as part of what was then his future history, he wrote a short novel called Coventry that was made up of a reoccurring theme in his sci-fi book that, there was the Second American Revolution, and the religious zealots took over the country, and they put all the undesirables in behind this force field in multiple states out west, Utah and Nevada and all these desert states, Coventry,
Mhm.
all these desirables, obviously criminals, but brown, black, Mormons, well, they're not evangelistic Christians. Catholics, well, they're not evangelistic Christians. So this whole thing that Margaret wrote in 1981, The Handmaid's Tale,
Mhm.
of the religious right evangelistic, quote, Christians, unquote, because they aren't. It actually goes back to Robert A. Heinlein,
Mhm.
what he was trying to say. Now, there are a lot of things I agree with on him. On philosophy, absolutely. Are there a lot of things I disagree with him? Absolutely, because he was 1,000% libertarian. Government should not control anything or do anything, et cetera, et cetera. I'm absolutely against that, obviously. But on social issues,
And so was Ayn Rand, and she died on Social Security.
I know. But on social issues, on freedoms, especially our first 10 amendments, or Bill of Rights, he was 1,001% behind that. And that I can 1,001% agree with, because I am. I've got somebody I've been following since before COVID. A couple that publishes their life every day. They used to on Facebook, but now it's strictly YouTube. And that is Jeremy and George. And that's his girlfriend, or their first name's George. And their channel's called What the Hell. And he's fighting for not just his, but all of our First Amendment rights against the corrupt judge in Florida. He's fighting not just for all of our Second Amendment rights, because now he can't even protect himself from stalkers across the street that bought a property across from his street in Florida that months and months ago, guns were pointed at him. He's not only fighting for our constitutional rights, our Fourth Amendment rights. He's fighting for, like, there's a public street between the two properties. This corrupt judge in Florida says, and he has multiple property entrances off the frontage of that public road. And the backside of those portions of his property are deep woods. He can't access from the back. He needs to access the 3 points on his property from the front. So he's been denied his constitutional right of access to his property. So anyone out there, if you don't already know what's going on legally with What the Hell, and all the internet and all the YouTube lawyers that have big followings have jumped on this worldwide, this case, and what's going on with these two people's lives. I suggest you look into it.
All right.
Go ahead.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
All right, John.
Did you disappear?
I'm here. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you for calling, and I appreciate it. And I want you to take care of yourself this week.
Well, I'm going to see a doctor again and get another round of antibiotics.
Well, good. Take care of
So
yourself.
now you take care of yourself, Christine. You take care of yourself, and George, you take care of yourself, bro. Love y'all.
Thanks so
Bye-bye.
much. One last thing I want to get to, and phone line is open, by the way. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Don't be afraid to call in. It's harmless, doesn't hurt a bit, promise. Doesn't cost anything. Don't need a subscription, anything like that to give us a shout. If nothing else, by Randall's calling, he shows you that it's very simple. You just dial and you're in. We don't screen. We don't, nothing. You call, it rings, I answer it, period. It's that simple. 267-227-9189. But there is one last topic that I had on the show announcements and promotions that I wanted to mention. And I want to make sure that we don't forget about it. And that is the congressional hearings and the possible in the legislation surrounding a banning of the TikTok app here and the service, if you will, service in the United States. I'm not exactly sure where to even start with this because I think you need to understand, we all as an American population need to understand some of the history surrounding this. I have said on past programs, and I'm surprised that I didn't get the kind of blowback from it that I would have expected, but you can make a case that the China has actually perfected capitalism. While their economy has slowed, it continues to grow, but just not at the same rate that it was growing. They were given, of course, the tremendous boost of, and might I even say possibly creation of their industrial economy because of the policies of Reagan, busting unions, dismantling a tariff system, slashing corporate profits or corporate taxes, actually passing as part of the tax code, which still exists to this day, by the way, and incentivizing companies to move their manufacturing to China. What Reaganomics did was take nearly all, and George W. Bush helped this even more, of the American industrial base, pick it up and move it over to China because Chinese workers work for pennies on the dollar compared to what American unionized workers were working for. Walmart has an entire division of its business. If you want to sell your product at Walmart and they say, well, we'll sell it, but we'll only sell it for this much. And you tell them, well, we can't make any money that way. We'd be losing money. Oh, well, we can show you how. We'll help you move your entire operation to China. They have a division of their corporation. Sam Walton's original vision of Walmart was to give local artisans and farmers and manufacturers and craftspeople a one centralized place to come and sell their goods, not just to each other, but to the public around. And his original vision has been so bastardized and mutated and twisted. Walmart has an entire division of its corporate structure that will help you lift up all of your company's manufacturing and move it to China. And why are Chinese manufactured goods so cheap? Because we don't charge tariffs anymore. I've said on this program before, the one policy position that Trump is 1,000,000% correct about. He and Bernie Sanders agree that this country must reestablish a tariff system. Make the foreign goods more expensive than the goods made in this country so that we foster, develop, and expand domestic production. And for those industries, if you will, that do not exist in this country anymore, that will birth them or rebirth them again. Not every computer has to be made in China. Not every television has to be made there. We can still do these things here. Tariffs would fix all of it. But you can make the argument that the Chinese have perfected capitalism. Now, if you're a high enough ranking member in the Communist Party of China, you make money. They have private ownership in China. They do have private ownership. They have billionaires. They have rich people. They have different economic classes. They are not a communist country, even though we continue to call them the Communist Chinese, and they themselves call them the Chinese Communist Party. Communism is that the working class runs and owns everything. Everybody makes the same amount of money in its strictest form. Every worker, regardless of what you do, gets paid the same. Everybody has the same kind of house. Everybody has the same kind of car. It was billed by Marx as a worker's paradise, a completely utilitarian, egalitarian society. Everybody has the same. Pure socialism. Every single thing gets lumped in, and we all live at the same level. There's nothing terribly communistic about the Chinese any longer. Economically, they are a capitalist society. Socially, they are a totalitarian society. The party runs everything. We gave them their industrial manufacturing base. The party and the Chinese military own, quote unquote, stakes in all Chinese private companies. Any research that a Chinese robot manufacturer might do must be shared with the government and the military. The government and the military own a piece of these companies. They share in the profits. So if you're a high enough official in the Chinese Communist Party, pretty damn wealthy, because you're getting a cut of all this for doing nothing other than being a member of the party that allows these companies to exist. TikTok is a Chinese-based and owned company, which means that the party, the Communist Party, and the Chinese military own a stake and receive a piece of the profits. And so the American government has decided that this is pretty dangerous. And it provides the Chinese Communist Party, as well as the military, a window into American society. Roughly half the country is on TikTok, about 170 million people. I am one of them. Sergeant Mac is one of them. Nearly everybody on Hot 101 is on it. It is a very useful promotional tool. In fact, we'll try to look this up. I will try to look this up for you pretty quickly. The promotional video that I did for today's program, 700 people watched it. I'm not even sure I know why. It's not that good. But just under 700 people checked it out. So for promotion, it's invaluable, to be perfectly honest. Just is. But every video that I post is available to the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party. And there's pretty good evidence that they are using TikTok as a window into American society to see what it is that we're talking about, what we care about, what bothers us, what we're happy about, what we're not happy about, especially in the realm of politics. And, and that they are using this window to manipulate the American public by TikTok accounts that they have created themselves and other content providers that they support to manipulate public opinion and ultimately affect elections. And so this has led to legislation that passed the House this week, very comfortably, by the way, a bipartisan piece of legislation that I think was 328 representatives voted for. I very well might have that number wrong. I know it was over 300 to ban access to the app altogether in this country. I've thought long and hard about this because I understand the argument for banning it. I do. I really do. And I suppose if this were a different era, if we had all of this technology, the technology that allows me to do this program with and for you from my own home with a simple internet connection. If we had had this during the Reagan era, I suspect that Reagan would have done a hell of a job of whipping us up into a national fervor about banning it. And it would have been sold to us as part of our patriotic duty to win the Cold War. And do we want a genuine, legitimate global competitor, not just economic global competitor, but military global competitor, to have this kind of window into American society? Now, I suspect, by the way, if we banned TikTok tomorrow, the Chinese party and military could get the same amount of data and this very same window into American society through Facebook, through Twitter, Mastodon, YouTube, any one of probably 100 other social media sites that I can't even name. But the fact that they directly own it, and it's owned by a Chinese private company with the governmental required stakes by the party and the military, does make it a tad bit different. So at the end of the day, where do I fall on it? Not that you've asked, but maybe it'll give you something to think about. Perhaps it will give you something to think about. If you are so opposed to TikTok and you think it should be banned, then don't be part of it. Don't watch it. Don't support it. Don't make a profile there. Don't be part of it. And I'm sure there's a good, again, it's only about half of Americans are part of it. It's not like Facebook. There are less American TikTok users than there are Instagram or Facebook or a lot of these other things. So if you don't support it, then simply don't use it. You know, Republicans used to love small government and that the free market solutions, quote unquote, Reagan gave us that shit too, that the free market will solve all this. Okay, well, if you don't support TikTok, then don't get on it. Don't support it. Don't watch it. Don't watch the videos. Don't watch the companies, corporations, and products that advertise there. And then it would solve itself, wouldn't it? But here's the other part that I think we don't think about. If we all dig deep enough, now we know that YouTube is owned by Google. I use YouTube. I'm on it right now. I'm live on it right now for nothing. I give them no money. And yet I'm live on YouTube right now. The entire planet can find me and watch me right now. They're not. They should be, but they're not. But they should be. They're not, but they really should be. But for no money, the entire planet could be watching me right now. We know that YouTube is owned by Google. Do we know exactly who all the Google owners and stockholders are? Do you honestly believe that there are no Chinese interests in Google? They may not own the company outright. They might be very minority stockholders. There might be so many individual Chinese stockholders that we would think that the party and the military don't own any of it. But yet they probably do, because where did all these different investors get all their money from? My point is that if we dig deep enough, I think we'd find Chinese ownership in everything. You think no Chinese folks, business people, billionaires, party officials, military officials own Google stock? None? I find that hard to believe. You think there's no Chinese investment in Facebook? I'm on Facebook right now. I don't say that as an attack on Facebook. Do you think there's no Chinese investment in Spotify? Or, I don't know, what the hell are the big apps even? Or Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I know Musk owns it, but there's still stock. Mastodon. Well, Instagram's a Facebook company, but you get my point. Are we going to ban all of them? Are we going to ban every app? George mentions Twitch. Thank you so much. You think there's, I don't know why the hell I forgot Twitch. You think there's no Chinese investment in Twitch? Or even some of these, what on the surface we would consider to be much more harmless apps, like a hotels.com or a Yelp or Waze or the Weather Channel. You don't think wherever there is a technology company or a manufacturing company that has stock, do we really think that there's no Chinese ownership or investment in that? But yet we're talking about TikTok. I think TikTok happens to be the shiny object. The United States government hasn't banned Chinese land and property ownership in this country. Why haven't we done that? There was a streak in this country where the Chinese and the Saudis were the top two that were buying private property in this country and just buying it all, buying land, buying abandoned homes, buying apartment buildings, strip malls. We didn't stop that. Is that really healthy to have the Chinese Communist Party and military have an ownership stake in thousands, if not tens of thousands of apartments across this country? We didn't ban that. Do I think TikTok should be banned? I don't. I do think there's some freedom of speech issues there. And I think if you're going to ban TikTok, you better look at all the rest of them. If Facebook has any Chinese investment in it, then I should be able to make the same case that should get banned as well. And before you go banning apps, maybe it's time to force the Chinese Communist Party and military through their billionaires to sell all the private land that they own in this country. And I don't just mean open farmland. I mean apartment buildings, office towers. They own skyscrapers in Manhattan, the strip malls, all of it. Then they force them to sell it all. You're in or you're out. They're the enemy or they're not. Now, that might sound hypocritical because I talked earlier in the program about living in the gray areas. But when it comes to China, the United States has seemingly, especially since World War II, I would say even earlier, one of the twists, one of the mutations of capitalism is that there's always an enemy out there. There's always somebody to be scared of. And while we're scared of that person, some sort of domestic industry grows up to combat it. The military industrial complex, a media, whatever it might be. And in that case, you're either in or you're out. If China really is our number one global competitor, and that we are now in a Cold War pitch battle with them for control of various countries around the globe, in the same way that we were with the Soviet Union during the Cold War, there was either the West or the Eastern Bloc. You were either a quote unquote capitalistic democracy or communist. It was one or the other. Well, if that is indeed the fact of what we're going through now, you are either aligned with the West or under the Chinese sphere of influence. Well, then we should be banning everything Chinese in this country. If they own Facebook stock, they should be forced to sell it. If they own, the Chinese still own, no, that's Japanese. Nintendo's Japanese. They do own one of the big video game companies, though. If they own stock in Google, they should be forced to sell it. If they own hundreds of thousands of garden apartments across this country, remember those old 60s garden apartments? They should be forced to sell it. So which is it? Are we just going after TikTok because it's very visible? Is it just the shiny object? We don't seem to be too pissed off about the Chinese buying millions of tons of coal from us and natural gas and wheat and corn. We don't seem to be too damn concerned about that. And oh, by the way, all through the Cold War, we sold wheat and corn to the Soviets because they couldn't feed themselves. So which is it? Are we in or are we out? We've also been told that when Americans invest in these so-called enemy countries, the democracy comes with it. I can read a clock. Respectfully, I can read a clock. So which is it? Democracy was growing in Cuba when the embargo and so the travel ban and so many of the sanctions were lifted or lowered during the Obama administration. And then just because Obama did it, Trump reversed all of it. I mean, one really has to wonder that if President Obama declared grass green, that Trump would have overturned it just because Obama did it. American companies have massive investments in China. Should we be forcing them to pull out of China? Well, of course, we're not going to do that because those corporations are making money. And after all, the religion of the almighty dollar. And we use these companies as portals to spy on China. Let's be blunt. I don't think I'm breaking any news here. We use those corporate presences of American corporations in China to spy on them. And they use it to spy on us. Hell, the country that, according to the U.S. government, one of the countries on earth that spies on us the most is Israel. So really, at the end of the day, should we ban TikTok? No. Should we regulate it more? Should we be forcing these companies through the Treasury Department, the Federal Trade Commission, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the bodies that regulate Wall Street, or should be regulating Wall Street? Should we be forcing these companies to disclose who's invested in them? Yes. That if the Chinese use some kind of shell corporation to come and say, we're going to buy X million shares in X company, and I don't mean X Twitter, could be any company, could be General Motors or Tyson Foods, it could be anybody, then yes, that's got to be disclosed. And it has to be regulated more. We don't just need to return to the policies of the New Deal for fairness in taxation. We need to return to the regulatory standards of the New Deal to protect ourselves from ourselves. And let's not forget, by the way, there will be retribution from the Chinese if TikTok is banned. Now, in no way do I think that should be a thing that we should be afraid of. But it will have ripples into this country. Remember, only recently did Mexico surpass China as the nation that we trade the most with. So China's still the second leading one. I think the Canadians, are third. If the Chinese decide to retaliate for banning TikTok and that they do it economically, it will have ripples through this economy, through the American economy. The American economy, which, by the way, is the strongest on earth. It sure as hell isn't the most equal, and I'm not trying to tell you that it is. But it did, the American economy has rebounded from COVID better than any other on earth, including China. But because China does so much American manufacturing, you need genuine help to find something in a modern brick and mortar store that isn't made in China, or on Amazon that isn't made in China. If we ban TikTok and they should decide to retaliate economically, it will have effects here in this country. Will it cause a recession or a depression? I doubt it. Will we feel it? Yes. You might see prices go up. You might see some products unavailable. You might see some companies here in the States with their manufacturing in China suffer. And that could be jobs. It could be the prices of goods Do I think it will be enough to, again, cause a recession or depression? No. But it is something to think about. Do we want that? I don't think this is just about banning. I don't think the banning of TikTok is some sort of major policy initiative or redirection of American government. I think it's just popular. I think it really is the shiny object. I'm not sure that we're looking at all the different consequences of it. You want to regulate it better, and by God, do it. You want to make them disclose where their investment is, who the actual owners of the company are, then make them disclose it. But do it all the way around. Do it for every company that operates in this country. And let's not be hypocritical about it, about the American companies that have massive, massive investments in China. 7 minutes left in the program. I can't think of anything else that I wanted to bring up necessarily. Let me just get to the group page. Just see if there was any articles quick, because we do have 7 minutes left. I actually posted, Randall shared the video of Senator Sanders. I'm surprised he didn't mention it. He himself may have forgotten that he shared it to us, but it is on our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information, where Senator Sanders talks about long COVID. I posted a meme earlier in the week. No, actually, it was yesterday. Really? Sorry, I thought it was longer. I think it's a great thing to end up on. The American government will openly say that it supplies about $50 billion in taxpayer subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. They'll admit that. Senator Sanders will say it's 10 times that if you look at the indirect subsidies to companies that supply and surround the fossil fuel industry. Global fossil fuel subsidies are over $5 trillion. That's all around the world. Here in Pennsylvania, we give $4 billion to the fossil fuel industry each and every year in free taxpayer money. Now, it's just been ruled that schools are inequitably funded here in the in Pennsylvania. We have starving kids. We have not just kids of color in inner cities, but white kids in rural areas who are starving and who can't afford to see doctors and can't afford to go to school. We have farmers whose land has been wrecked by the fossil fuel industry. But we give the fossil fuel industry a free $4 billion a year just here in Pennsylvania. Given the amount of subsidies that we give the fossil fuel industry, gas really should be about $1.50 a gallon at the most. We now pump more oil than the Saudis, and we are the world's leading supplier of natural gas. We ship it all over the world. Gas would also be back around $1 a gallon if we simply change the law that says we were allowed to export fossil fuel products. And it was President Obama, by the way, that signed that legislation. If we just reversed that and kept everything home, gas would probably go down about $1 a gallon. So there was a meme that was posted by The Other 98%. If you've never seen them on Facebook, really should be the 99%. I don't even know why they grace the other 2%. It really is the 1% and the top 0.01% that run the country. Exxon made $8 billion last quarter. That would have been November, December, January. One of the highest amounts in their 150-year history. And not the highest, by the way, just one of. So why did they get free taxpayer money? I'm going to leave you this week with that question. So why do they get taxpayer money? They have recorded historically globally high profits. Even through COVID, when the economy was shuttered, they were making historically globally high profits. And yet we're subsidizing them. Why? Why? We need to reverse the law that says we can ship and export fossil fuel products from this country. If we simply did that, by the way, it would also be better for the environment if we reverse that, because the demand in this country isn't here to support what's being pumped and extracted and fracked. The supply and the demand would balance each other out. It would be better for the environment, and prices would plummet, but it would affect profits. So of course we can't do that. The entire former Republican Party and too many damn Democrats are under the thumb of the fossil fuel industry because Citizens United has allowed them to be purchased. And it has to stop. I didn't even get really deep into Trump's final full takeover of the RNC. George even reminded me of it early on, and I still forgot it. We're down to our last minute. So let me please say, for everybody who tuned in this week, for everybody who allowed us to be on part of their Facebook, everybody at TCP, to everybody at Hot 101, DJ Lex, DJ Earl, Chino, Waterboy, everybody at Hot 101, to, of course, George. Every program is better and more comfortable and just easier, and it's just better when George is here. He is family. To his wife, Lynn, to April Riddick, Lehigh County Commissioner April Riddick, to Kristen, Daisy the dog, and Guy the cat downstairs, to Randall, our caller, France, who's been here for the whole show. We've done about all the damage we can do for this week. Remember, we are not with you for the next 2 weeks. Have a blessed Palm Sunday, a blessed Holy Week, and a wonderful, wonderful Easter, Passover, and Ramadan. The Villain's View begins right now. We'll see you April 7th. Stay tuned. Hot 101 continues. The Villain's View right now.